All right, we're all set.
Okay, welcome everybody. It is 11:10. We're about 10 minutes late in the start of this board reorganization committee meeting. We apologize for the delay. There were some technical difficulties in getting two of our members here today signed up. So I would like to call to order and the meeting and welcome everyone. So we do have a quorum, so I'd like to take a attendance here for everyone. Brooke Marshall.
Here.
And Val Siemens. Representing finance, she's here as well.
Present.
And our trustee member, Dan Turner.
Here.
Thank you, Trustee Turner. And we also have our board clerk here. So we do have a quorum, and we will go ahead and proceed. Have you all seen the very short and tight agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to ask that the members of the committee here approve the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Any changes to the agenda or any discussion?
No.
Okay, we have an approval. Hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have our agenda. Let's move forward into our agenda. The first topic here is there has been a number of things we have done this year to reorganize the district office. And in doing so, we as a district need to look at our salary schedule as well as our administrative benefits. That has been a priority from the board to look at our administrative benefits in terms of them having the desire to cut administrative salaries and actual cut administrative expenditures, excuse me. So one of the suggestions here for our administrative salary schedule is that the board has authorized a classification and compensation study, and it is a point that we want to make here that it might be best to look at that classification and compensation study first and get those results before we start trying to make wholesale changes to the salary schedule and thereby having to change them again if the compensation and classification study gives us information that we need to change it again. So would anyone like to discuss this further before we make any kind of motion?
I would just like to weigh in that I think that would allow us to take a much more analytical approach to the salary schedule and classification work, after we've done that study. So I think this is will move us towards best practices if we can just allow ourselves a little bit of time and get some real great third-party inputs on the process.
Thank you, Trustee Turner. Brooke?
Yeah, I concur with Trustee Turner. I think that it's a good idea for us to be able to look at the big picture and incorporate all facets of the salary schedule and compensation packages for all three employee groups, including the administrators.
Thank you, Brooke. And one of the things that I just want to mention real quick is that in looking at what we currently have in terms of compensation to all three employee groups and looking at the salary structures, the salary schedules, there is some definite need for some reorganization of that entire process. Both HR and myself, and I'm sure Val will jump in on this, we see constant shifts in salaries and where people come in on a salary schedule and versus other people, and there are definitely some questions about it. So instead of dealing with perceptions in the community or possibly within the district itself, like Trustee Turner is saying, I think we need to deal with more of a best practice and a factual-based evidentiary approach to cleaning up our salary schedules and cleaning up the compensation and classification in all those 3 employee groups. Valerie, did you want to add anything to that?
I don't really have anything to add. I completely agree. I think we need some factual information to be able to make decisions with.
Great. Is there potentially someone who would like to make a motion concerning the idea of using the authorized classification and compensation study to be the database that we will then derive information to potentially shift or change our salary schedules for all 3 classification groups?
So moved.
Second.
And we have a second on that. Any more discussion? Go ahead, Brooke.
I just wanted to let the committee know that I have begun drafting the request for proposal. I sought and received information from our district lawyer for purposes of ensuring that the district is going through the correct and compliant process with regard to putting out an RFP for this this type of proposal. So I should have that shortly to be able to reach out and contact individual companies and then also advertise it for the general public to be able to see that process.
So that is the RFP for the class and comp study, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then is it the understanding of the group that any kind of change to salaries or benefits would be included in this motion?
Yes.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I would just like to add that I really applaud the direction this is all going. I think we, in that we have the direction right and the momentum right. I don't think we need to be hasty in what we're doing here. I think the judicious approach to this, because we don't want to raise the level of anxiety amongst any class of employee that we have. We value them all so much, but I do think directionally this is an outstanding place for us to be going. But let everyone rest assured that it will not be a hasty decision. It'll be one that's based on analytics and as many inputs as we can bring to the table. But again, I think we're certainly heading in the right direction here.
Yes, go ahead, Brooke.
I just wanted to further clarify with regard to the classification and compensation study, because I think we discussed it recently at a board meeting, but I understand that there's, sometimes there's not a complete understanding of what this type of study is, what the purpose is. So the purpose really is to not only ensure legal compliance with regard to a public sector's salary schedules, but it's also to ensure that there is data that is examined and analyzed and comparator school districts and other organizations that are utilized in order to ensure that any salary schedule that has low, median, and high ranges for any position within the district, whether it be classified, certified, or administrative, is based on that analysis and based on real-time data in terms of the market here, the economic factors, and comparing that with other school districts and other companies and organizations. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I realized that it came up at the last board meeting, and perhaps I wasn't quite as articulate as I intended to be in terms of this isn't to direct a salary schedule one way or another. It's to obtain real data that is based on comparisons and cost of living and other factors in order to come up with a salary schedule that is equitable and competitive and fair. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Brooke. I think that's really important. And one thing I want to emphasize to anyone that is watching and to the community in general is that this board is very committed to balancing the budget. And some people may think that a class and comp study, exactly what Brooke was saying, is a way of potentially increasing certain pay for certain of our employee groups. And that's not the case at all, because that's not really something that's in our purview. We really have to balance the budget for this district to proceed financially. It is critical that we actually have some data and some facts to back up who's compensated at what level. There are many instances where we are looking at hiring people for our IT department, our tech department, and it is a very challenging thing to hire people with good skills in our tech department. It's very challenging to hire teachers in certain disciplines, and we have a number of principal openings and a number of high-level administrative openings right now, and we need to know these things in terms of our salaries and whether the compensation packages are appropriate, because as many people know right now, we are seeing a very tough real estate market in our valley right now. Tough for those who are buying, I would say, not so tough for those who are selling, but it is some shifts and so I think Trustee Turner and Brooke, you're both very accurate in your statements that this study is to give us the actual analytics that we need to do our best job as a public sector employment group. Go ahead, Brooke.
And one further thing just to add in terms of the study itself. So this is not something that is an ongoing cost should the district decide to employ a consultant or contract that does this type of work. This is a one-time contract cost, and companies that are worth their salt will be able to provide the district with information on, say in 2 years, there's been, quite a change in terms of economics or cost of living or inflation, what have you. A consultant that is an expert in this field will be able to give the district the tools to be able to analyze those changes and then make adjustments accordingly. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I know that in terms of being fiscally prudent, this is not an ongoing cost.
Great, thank you so much for that. So we have a motion in front of us, and the motion is to employ the findings of our comp and class study prior to changing any major salary schedules or compensation packages currently in the district, and to use that analytical data to then move forward. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Oh, I'm not supposed to vote. Sorry.
It's okay. It is unanimous. I am voting with the other 2 members of the committee. So we will move forward with that motion. The next topic is we have discussed in prior meetings, and we have looked at the idea of, do we want to continue with district cell phone usage? Before we begin our discussion, I want you to know that I did reach out to our many directors and principals, as well as some of our mental health therapists and other folks, to discuss this, to let them know that this was a discussion point. There has been the desire, it was a request way back, I believe in December, that we look at things like our software packages, we look at things like district cell phones. In other words, the board is being very, very focused on looking at all of our major expenditures and deciding about, should we continue them. There is a common perception here that as cell phones became a common tool that were used by professionals across the country and citizens as well, is that the cell phone for district employees, our program in a sense, started out pretty small. It started out with, I think it was 3 superintendents ago, where the value of having a device with you where you could email and text and call and be more reachable during the day was considered to be something that the district really wanted to do. And so they gave the cell phones initially to some key members of the employee group, with administrators being involved and certain directors. And that was a small group, but over time, we have increased the number of cell phone users in the district to a much bigger number. It is about 65 people now that have district cell phones. And many of these people do use the cell phone as their personal and professional phone. I want you to know that in terms of the costs associated with cell phones, all of our devices, which include many hotspots that go into homes for people to help them stay connected, many of them are paid for by some of our contributors in the Valley, our nonprofits and organizations that have helped us contribute to making sure that every single student has access. So we have our total bill is around $4,000 a month, but it comes down significantly once you take out the money that is paid by certain employees, which is a small fee of $25 to be able to use their cell phone. And then also when you take out all the contributions that come to us from some outside sources. So really we're talking about an annual cost of around $3,000. I mean, I'm sorry, $30,000 to the district. So the discussion here today is a number of things. First off is, do we want to stay in the cell phone business, so to speak, where we provide cell phones to our employees? The second thing is, what would our cost savings be overall? And let me find one email here from Teresa McGoffin. There could be some savings here, potentially upwards of about $30,000 a year if we completely just stop the process. So one of the things that she mentioned is what are the arguments for getting out of the cell phone employee business? A savings of about $30,000 a year, and there is some tech department overhead, hours to purchase, configure, transfer data, repair, replace phones that could be better spent supporting teachers. And then it also, there is some concern from the community that consider, like, why are we giving cell phones to our employees, that it's free technology, that kind of thing. And then here's some arguments that Teresa provided on the other side. Why should we continue to have cell phones for certain employees? The employees use the device all day for work. It is a constant usage that we have to stay connected to our jobs, even when we're out and about doing all kinds of things. We have management oversight for public records requests. This is the ability of, as communications happens, we can manage that through our public record request if that happens. Social workers and many of our therapists and mental health folks, and they have sent their own emails. Trust me, I've had emails from every single employee group that have cell phones. And one of their concerns is that the texting feature in phones, as well as other features in the phones, make it critical in contacting our community members. There are life-threatening situations that our social workers and our counselors and our mental health therapists and some of our directors, we have life-threatening situations with our students. And very rarely will we get contact with a landline. Very rarely will we get contact with a email. And in these situations, texting seems to be the way that they have been able to use as the primary way that they get in touch with students who are in critical need, or parents that have students in critical need. So the social workers were adamant that their cell phones are critical to their work, and they feel very uncomfortable with giving out a private number to a family member, that then that family member may be calling them in times of need at all hours on their private phone. So there is a concern from the social workers as well as therapists that using their personal line is unsafe. Also, many of our social workers and our therapists will go actually to the school sites, and they go, to the families' homes. They have to do home visits on a regular basis, and their district cell phone is like a safety landline for them. It's like a hook. So one of the things that we ask our social workers to do is if they're going to do a home visit, and if they're concerned about the potential of doing a home visit, that we know exactly when they're going and who they're going with, and we have that phone that we could actually ping to make sure we know where they are. So they see it as kind of a safety feature for them to do these home visits that are so critical to their job. Maintenance and technology folks reported that maintenance says that many of the other businesses throughout the valley that require snow removal at 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, that they provide cell phones to their employees. Our maintenance director talked to one of our big snow removal companies that work with us, and all their employees have cell phones, and they are expected to answer those professional cell phones at the given hours and not their personal phones. So it is a common practice for many of the snow removal companies that they issue a cell phone to their employees. And then the maintenance and technology employees use their phones to access the work order system, the online manuals. So let's say there's a maintenance worker or a tech employee that is out in the field, and they can actually access their online work order system with their cell phone. Principals can also do that. They can access Skyward and get vital information on a student to answer a question by using their apps as well. Also, the bus department sent me an email. Lance Doby, our transportation director, he sent an email to me saying how vital it is that they have connectivity for the bus drivers. Oftentimes there is very poor radio reception, even with the repeaters that we have up on our mountaintops. Our buses do travel well beyond our range, and they go out into the state. And while the radio normally works, there are places where they can only contact a bus by cell phone and not by radio. Literally, I got an email from every single group. The maintenance, the SROs have cell phones, the school resource officers. One of the things that we also have is supervisors keep in contact with many of their employees throughout the day by texting and not by using the intercom system in the schools, disrupting the whole school. They can text their employees that have cell phones during the day. We do have a Verizon government plan, which is the lowest cost available because the minutes are all pooled. The cell phones do aid effectively and efficiently with our operations. So when I brought this up to our staff and let them know that we were looking at this discussion, I got quite an outpouring of concern that this is a valuable thing that we do in our district, and that the overall cost savings are somewhat minimal. But I wanted to report all those findings that I got from many of our staff members. So I'd like to open it up to discussion, because I know some of our people here might have an opinion on that as well. So if anyone wants to jump in on this discussion at this point, that would be great. Brooke, please jump in.
So for the purposes of human resources work, I keep my personal cell phone and my work district phone completely separate. And the primary concern I have is I do not feel comfortable having a personal phone in which I am potentially going to be texting or email, using for email even, or phone conversations that have to do with oftentimes confidential information. That makes me extremely uncomfortable. So in the instance where a public records request comes in, and if I only have my personal cell phone, that creates a situation where I feel like even if the requested records are to do with the district. Inevitably, if a personal phone is mixed with a work phone, in that situation, there is going to be information that potentially is confidential that is part of that records request. So that really concerns me.
Trustee Turner, do you have some comments?
Yeah, I mean, these obviously sound like all very valid concerns from each constituent group. Maybe what I'm trying to get my hands around is the policy that's behind all this. I mean, everyone laid out some great instances where it was appropriate to be carrying a district cell phone. But just curious, is there a policy somewhere that codifies all of this, or is that the way we should be going towards with this discussion, so that we come out of it saying, we've looked at this issue. These are the instances in which we believe a district employee should be carrying a district cell phone, and then live by that policy. It seems in the discussion, the growth of the cell phone usage was just kind of an ad hoc process, and maybe if we could drive it back to a real set policy, whereas you named some very good examples where it seems totally appropriate, but should we put that in a policy that then everyone could see and understand why some district employees are carrying cell phones, and while at the same time we want to make sure it's just not a proliferation just because it was requested.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Trustee Turner. And just like I've seen the increase in stipends for staff in the last few years, it's the kind of thing where it starts out as maybe a good idea for a certain group, but then it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So, Brooke, do you have a policy there that? Because I want to apologize first off. I didn't even think about a policy because I don't recall a policy on that. Otherwise, I would have had it at the ready. But Brooke, is there a policy there?
The only policy that BCSD currently has is titled Personal Phone Calls. It's 412-20, and it really isn't pertinent. It's more to do with using telephones, so it's kind of archaic or outdated. So I think that's a really good recommendation, Trustee Turner, and I'd be happy to help in the effort to draft something that that would codify really what the expectations are around district use or district owned cell phones and their use.
Yeah, Trustee Turner, I really agree with your point, and Brooke, as you as well, because what I'm seeing here again is a process that starts an idea and then it keeps growing and growing and growing without really any structure or rules to it. And who gets a cell phone? Well, sure, just give them a cell phone. There has not been in my mind a real process to say that these jobs definitely get a cell phone. Who is supposed to work on them? It's just been assumed by technology that they're the ones that take over all this extra work. I don't think that when Teresa was hired, Teresa McGoffin, our tech director, that cell phone maintenance and upkeep was going to be in her job description way back when. So I really do recommend that, just like the previous topic, that we need to do some homework and actually build a policy around this, and then revisit the issue once we have a complete complete understanding of why people have cell phones, what are the parameters around the use of those cell phones, and what that cost would be, so we can do a much better job in reporting to the board the overall process of that, but rein it in, so to speak, so that we have some, a cap on that constant growth. Go ahead, Brooke.
So one of the organizations that I worked for prior to this, we actually had an internet use and cell phone, not only a policy, but we also had individuals who had district owned, or organization owned phones. They would sign a usage agreement essentially, and that was based on the policy that codified you're not using this for personal use, et cetera, et cetera. So, I would recommend something like that in conjunction with a policy, and that way you keep it clean. There's a separation between, no personal use, only district use, that type of thing.
Is there a time frame on when you think we could build that type of policy?
Sure, I'd be happy to look at prior examples I'm aware of and then provide some draft language for both of those documents.
Any further discussion? Does the group think that that might be something that would be the best advisable course of action, is to actually try to develop a policy and take that to the board?
I think it'd be a great idea. I think, I love rules-based systems that can outlive the institutional memory of any individual, that can go on and guide the district, beyond our time here. So I'm much in favor of it. So thank you, Brooke, for volunteering.
Absolutely.
And go ahead, Val, please jump in.
Well, I just wanted to add that we do have a district cell phone procedure that we had developed at one point. And so we do have some groundwork that we can look at this. I have a copy of it that we would make everyone sign that had a cell phone. I think when the cell phones moved away from the business office and went to the technology department, this may have gotten a little lost in the shuffle. But
Okay.
I will give this to Brooke and we can see if it will help define.
So what we could do here is develop a motion that would basically say that the district will move forward with developing a policy or procedure for cell phone use and cell phone distribution to employees, and then take that to the Board of Trustees for approval at a future date. Yes, go ahead, Brooke.
And then I would suggest, so policy, procedure, and then perhaps a district cell phone usage agreement that employees would sign.
Great. So we can add that to that motion. So let me repeat the motion, that the committee here is putting a motion out that we will develop a policy, procedure, and agreement, and develop this for the distribution and usage of our cell phones, and possibly then take it to the board for approval to see if we want to actually continue that usage, or if we want to just codify it and make sure that we have the appropriate restrictions in place. Does anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Seconded. All right. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 And I vote aye as well, so that is a unanimous thing. So Brooke and Val, if you guys could work together to kind of come up with that, make sure you include Teresa McGoffin in the process, as she's so adept at what we've been doing. And I really want to reiterate with this group and with the community that might be listening that we've already made a substantial amount of savings for our district in administrative costs through a reorganization. And this committee is kind of changing gears a little bit. We're not just about reorganization anymore. We're really about looking at various types of cost savings and things like that throughout. But there is a theme here, and the theme I'm seeing is that we have to really get our ducks in a row as a district first off, and then really have the analytics and the good data to make some of these broader decisions as we move forward. And as we have a new superintendent coming on board and a new assistant superintendent, some of that work can be done with our board in the future as well. Anything else for the good of the order?
No.
All right, I'll make would someone please make a motion that we adjourn at this time?
I move that we adjourn the board reorganization committee.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right,
Yeah.
all those in favor of adjourning at this time, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll keep Vicky apprised of our next upcoming meeting, and hopefully we can meet in about 2 more weeks or when our agenda demands our attention. So thank you all very much for your time, and thanks to those of you that have joined in the meeting. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Trustee Turner.